it's been, you just got to be aware. And I think the biggest thing is just, be safe, be smart, but it is definitely a foggy start out there on your roadways this morning. So make sure that you're locked in. Make sure you're locked in. But yeah, on the way in, it's not as cold as it has been. And we're trending upward. Like, think about this time last week, we were having single digit type feels like, as far as wind chill and the temperature that we were seeing earlier on. So you kind of just appreciate a little bit of a quote unquote warmer start to everything. But it was been fun. I appreciate John and Conrad holding things down yesterday after a long weekend. I didn't get a chance to recap that Auburn and Tennessee matchup where it felt like nobody wanted to make a shot. Nobody was able to make a shot. But then you get the return of Janai Broome, and he makes his impact felt from the jump. And Auburn is they're just inching towards. And again, if he may not be 100%, he played exceptionally well on Saturday night. And Alabama, getting by LSU. No Mark Sears in the second half, of course. Of course, you've seen the social media rounds with his mom and how she was upset. Of course, she's a parent. She's going to feel, some type of way when her son isn't going out there and being able to, play the ball that he wants to at a high level, especially with somebody of his caliber in the future that he has going into potentially a professional role. So just a lot over the weekend. And something I was thinking about pretty much all weekend long after the AFC Championship game, it instantly, now the Kansas City Chiefs have reached this point of they're villains. Like they are the villains. They are the Thanos of the NFL's at Marvel Studios, because of the fact that, okay, on one hand, people are like, oh yeah, like I like, like the dynasty run. But I think it's more along the lines of now they are just so celebrity instead of focusing on football, because again, they seem to catch a lot of the breaks. But why do we have a problem with winners? And I know it's a little bit different for Alabama fans. It's like, hey, man, we racked up the national championships. Let the hate on. Come on, bring it to you. But this is what happens when you have success. But it feels as though Philadelphia, because they have this natural Rocky story of just overcoming everything. But no, you're a perennial team in the NFL. Like the Super Bowl usually goes through Philly at some form or fashion with the success that they've had. This is their second Super Bowl in 3 years. So I look at this Kansas City Chiefs team, and it's like, okay, they have all the pieces. They've got a pretty much goat in the making at the quarterback position. Everything around them just seems as though it benefits and what makes Patrick Mahomes successful. But it's almost like people are getting tired of the winning. They're in the Super Bowl again. Well, ever since Patrick Mahomes been a starter, he's been in the AFC Championship game. So he doesn't know his season not ending in either them having a chance to play for a Super Bowl or him playing in the actual Super Bowl. So it's just hard to balance of why is the Kansas City Chiefs public enemy number one in this year's Super Bowl, to be honest.
It's exactly what you said. We just got done dealing with it with Alabama. We thought we were going to deal with it with Georgia for a little bit. I also think, you look at the fact that in the NFL, you essentially went from Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes. And I think maybe that hurts it a little bit just because there was no break in between. You went from one quarterback dominating the league for about 20 years. And now you have another quarterback who we're like, oh, great, we're going to have to deal with him for another decade still, probably, if he stays healthy. And so I think that's part of it. But I think it's also just, generally, right? Nobody likes, nobody's an Alabama football fan just because, like, oh, I don't have anybody to root for, so I'll pull for Alabama this game. Like, that's not how it works, right? You either are an Alabama fan or you hate Alabama, probably. It's the same thing with the Cowboys. It's the same thing with, the Lakers, the Yankees, teams like that, where it's just, if you're a fan of them, great. If you're not, it's probably, every other fan base in the world against you.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the tradition of winning or, the historical success that you've had. And yeah, people don't like that when it's not their team because it's a reminder that the teams that they root for aren't as successful. I think that's a lot of it. And I think it's just, people get tired of, seeing the same players over and over again that they don't root for.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest. I think that part of it, because I did have this thought yesterday when we were talking about it on the shows, and it was just, as for me personally, as an Alabama fan, it's like I should probably be more sympathetic towards Chiefs fans, just because it's like I kind of can relate to where you're coming from. Just in the sense of, again, like I said, like I don't expect anybody to ever be sympathetic towards Alabama. Like when Alabama missed the playoff, I didn't expect anybody to be like, oh, really sorry you guys missed the playoff. Like, no, like it's Alabama. You're gonna have a little smirk on your face about it, and that's perfectly fine. I would expect nothing less. But yeah, I think it's a lot of that with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's the same thing with players, right?
Yeah,
Well, why do people hate LeBron James?
because he the GOAT.
Now, some people don't like him because of, certain stances that he takes on things. And look, I understand that. I'm not saying I think he's just like the greatest guy ever, but he's one of the best basketball players of all time, whether you think he's the best or the second best or the fifth best or whatever. There's no doubt that he is one of the 5 or 6 greatest basketball players to ever walk
Without
this
a doubt.
planet. And people still don't like him because he's been good for so long and he's been around for so long. We did the same thing with Mike Trout in baseball. Granted, his is a little different because he played for a franchise that, quite frankly, sucks. And so he never really was threatening to win a bunch of World Series. But
Yeah.
it's the same thing with him, right? Why did he not win the MVP? 8 years running? Because people get tired of the same people winning the same awards, and we feel like we have to mix it up or we have to award other people. It's the same thing. I've heard it with the MVP discussion in the NFL this year. Well, maybe Lamar had a better season than Josh Allen, but he's already got 2 of them. So maybe we can just give it to Josh this year. Okay, how about you give it to the person you think deserves it the most?
Exactly.
It shouldn't matter that somebody has won 2 of the last 4 MVPs or whatever, and so you want to give it to somebody that doesn't have one yet, so it's more equal. No, that's not equal. You're just, you're catering to somebody because you feel bad for them.
It's that winner's fatigue.
Exactly. And it's all around sports. So it's not just with teams, it's also with individual players, but it's, that's just how we are as a society, right? We want to find things that we can criticize and things that we can tear down, and it's not fun when
Right.
something's just good all the time.
Yeah, and think about it. People didn't have a problem when Michael Jordan was going to the NBA Finals, and everybody likes to throw it in LeBron James's face of, oh, when he gets there, he wins it. It's okay, well, y'all didn't get tired of that. He three-peated twice, and everybody holds that in such high regard. But then when we see it right now with the Kansas City Chiefs, it's, oh, well, Patrick Mahomes gets all the breaks. Yeah, it's fair. But also, it's not like there aren't other teams in the NFL that can prevent this from happening. Look at Josh Allen's entire career. He no matter how much success that he has individually or with the Buffalo Bills, if he doesn't beat the Kansas City Chiefs when it matters the most, he'll always be looked at as the understudy behind what Patrick Mahomes was. So, and that's the thing. At this point, all of the quarterbacks in the AFC have the same exact narrative. It's, well, we ran into the Chiefs. We ran into the Chiefs. But also, the Kansas City Chiefs aren't going to apologize for winning and all the success that they've had. And then we see them at the finest moments, like the Super Bowls and things like that. So it's kind of unique now because I was watching with some friends. I was watching the game with some friends, and everybody's just like, man, I'm just so tired of seeing the Kansas City Chiefs in there. Well, I'm like, well, the Buffalo Bills had their opportunity. They haven't done it. It's kind of just, it is what it is. And the way that the Chiefs are doing it, it's not like they look completely different now than they did when Tyreek Hill was there, early on in the Super Bowl runs. Mm-hmm. So they're still finding ways to adapt. It's, you got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, and other teams, they don't.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that, well, so first off, I mean, I think, if we're talking just on who gets credit and things like that with Kansas City, I think the defense doesn't get nearly enough credit for, I mean, they've honestly become one of the best defenses in the NFL over the last 2 or 3 years. And, we don't think about that as much because it's Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and you're just so used to a certain style from them that we really haven't seen in the last 3 years. But people, I guess just forgot that they've lost a lot of key pieces. And I mean, you look at and I brought this up yesterday when we were talking about Josh Allen and what the Bills were able to do this year, because this was the year, coming into the season that I think a lot of people were starting to, all right, it was fun, the Bills and Chiefs rivalry for a few years, but the Bills are, maybe trending down a little bit, and you lose guys like Stephon Diggs, and you just, you look at what Josh Allen had to work with this year. I mean, I think James Cook's an exceptional player. I think Kincaid has a bright future. But you look at, his receivers. I mean, his best receiver was, either Keon Coleman, who really wasn't that big of a factor this year as a rookie, or Khalil Shakir, who nobody in the NFL knew who that was unless you play fantasy football coming into the season,
Yep.
right? And so, and he managed to go out there and have the best season of his career and get, a game away from the Super Bowl. And so, but I think similarly, if we're going to give praise to guys like that, you have to do a similar thing for Patrick Mahomes. Because, I get he has Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's 35 years old. Travis Kelce's had one, I would say, big game this year, and it was against the Texans in the divisional round, right? And he had over 100 yards receiving. He's not the same Travis. I'm just saying right now, don't be surprised if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl and Travis Kelce says, "Peace out. I'm done, you guys." That's the point that he's at in his career. And you've got, a DeAndre Hopkins who still has only been on this team for, half the season, and he's still getting acclimated. You got Juju Smith-Schuster, you got Hollywood Brown, who hadn't played all season because of an injury. And, these are the guys that he is capable of taking to a Super Bowl. And we talked about it with Tom Brady for so long. It just put 10 dudes out there with Tom Brady, you're going to win a lot of football games, right? And that's where Patrick Mahomes is now. He is just so good that he's able to elevate all the guys around him, and you pair that with one of the better defenses in the NFL, and that's what makes them so difficult. They're not a threat to go out there and score 50 points a game anymore, but they're a threat to hold you to 14 points a game, 17 points a game, and then that allows them to play the style that they want to play. So, yeah, I think I wonder too if part of it is, going back to what I said about, you had the Patriots dynasty, or the Tom Brady dynasty, whatever you want to call it, including his year there in Tampa Bay. And we went straight from that to Patrick Mahomes. And I do think that, when you bring up the Michael Jordan thing of, well, nobody seemed to have a problem when the Bulls were winning it all back in the 90s. People were tired of the Patriots while they were around. But I feel like now that Tom Brady's retired, he is held in such high regard as the greatest football player of all time that I think there's also a part of it that's people like, oh, we don't want somebody to break those records this soon.
True.
Damn, we just watched 20 years of the greatest football player ever, and now right after him is potentially the guy that's going to dethrone him, or I guess has the best chance to dethrone him. And I think there's a little bit of that as well of, oh, well, just, we don't want to get rid of Tom Brady. He was so great, and he was. He's the best player of all time. But I think that maybe is part of it too. Is you have a little bit of that effect where it's we hold somebody in the past in such high regard that we're not ready for somebody to come in and kind of steal that crown from.
Yeah, we didn't want the baton passed this fast.
Exactly. Yeah, give it 50 years and then we'll talk about it.
No, but it brings up a great point. And to your Tom Brady comparison as well, it's when the Patriots were rolling, you kind of just they have TB12, the other team does not. And it's not like we didn't see we've seen Tom lose. Hell, look at Eli Manning. He's 2-0 in Super Bowls, and 2 of his wins came against the GOAT. And even Nick Foles. Nick Foles is up in the press box living it, and we know him as the backup quarterback forever. And he had one shining moment against the Tom Brady-led Patriots. So I think when we look at Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City Chiefs team, and I agree with you that it's how do we pick and choose when we have winners fatigue? Because now it's, I get it. There's a lot of the Kansas City, I guess you say, mystique that people just kind of take. I don't want us to get to a point maybe a decade from now of oh, we really didn't appreciate how good, Patrick Mahomes was because of the fact that it was on the coattails of Tom Brady. And again, he's a part of that Tom Brady story too, because Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl. So it's you can't. We were witnessing history before we really realized it, and now it's oh no, this could actually happen for another 10 to 15 years. If they don't, there's no signs. I think that's another thing too. It's now there's no signs of stopping it from the Chiefs, because think of how ugly this season was in regular season form. Still found a way to end the ultimate goal of playing for a Super Bowl.
And it's not even like last year where, they kind of sputtered through the regular season, and I think they won, 12 games last year, which, that's still a good record. But just by their standards, maybe not quite the season you would have thought. And then you look at them this year, and, again, the narrative was, okay, I know last year we said they weren't as good, but they still won the Super Bowl. But this year they're really not as good. And then they go out there and they win 15 games and One of them you just avenged because it was to the Bills, and
Yep.
the other one was the last week of the regular season when you were resting all of your starters for the postseason. And it's like, okay, maybe we're just kind of overthinking this stuff sometimes. But you brought this up, or you kind of alluded to it at the beginning, but it is also kind of funny. And they're not in that same arena yet. But if the Chiefs hadn't been doing what they're doing, it wouldn't be as loud of a conversation. But I think some people would start looking at the Eagles in the same way, in the sense that, you mentioned it. So they're going to their second Super Bowl in 3 years. They're going to their third Super Bowl in the last 7 years, eight
Yep.
years. Going back to when Nick Foles beat Tom Brady and the Patriots in the Super Bowl that year, with Doug Peterson as the head coach. And you just look at that and you're like, man, 3 Super Bowls in 8 years? That's incredible. I mean, that's a very
Right.
difficult thing to do, but nobody talks about that because it's all about the Chiefs because they're going to win three in a row, or they're attempting to win three in a row. So it's just kind of funny too how it's like, okay, even if we live in some universe where Patrick Mahomes doesn't go to the Chiefs, right? We're probably talking about how the Eagles, like, man, they've gone to 3 of the last 8 Super Bowls. Like,
Right.
man, they're pretty good. Like, and they got, young quarterback, young receivers. Like, man, we're gonna get tired of these guys soon. So again, it's just, I guess the Chiefs are the bigger villain at this moment, but it's regardless, people are gonna find a way to hate on whoever's winning at the time.
Yeah. They hate us because they ain't us. And that's kind of how the Chiefs are.
Yeah.
And they make it, I mean, they make it work. They make it work. 205-834-9450. Why do you hate the Chiefs? Like what's the issue with them? What's the issue with them? We'll also take a look at some college basketball as the SEC gets up and started this week. Take a look at some games coming up tonight and also give you a peek into Alabama and Auburn on the hardwood. All that and so much more here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5.
622, welcome back into Morning JOX here on your Tuesday morning. Conrad and Damian here with you, diving into the Chiefs dynasty and why exactly people hate the Chiefs so much. Really just why people hate winners so much, but it's just, I guess it's just part of our human nature, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. That just seems to be the way that it is. But something that Damian mentioned, when he at the beginning, after he had come back and kind of sharing some thoughts on SEC hoops over the weekend. The Mark Sears situation, which if you've, I guess, been living under a rock for the last 48 hours and you don't have social media, which good for you. Essentially, Mark Sears sat on the bench the entire second half of the LSU game. There was a lot made of it, reports of him crying on the bench or players and coaches crying on the bench with him. People thought he might be hurt. People thought maybe he was sick, whatever it may be. And then his mother goes on social media after the game and, defends her son and just says some things that, look, as a mother, I could understand where she is coming from because she is looking out for her son. But as I said it yesterday, these types of situations just when a family member voices concerns about a player and a team, whether it's college, professional, whatever, it typically doesn't work out super well. Do we remember Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad?
Yeah, right.
Do we remember some of the
speaking off emotion?
Do we remember the LeVar Balls of the world and the people like that? And I'm not trying to say that she's on that level, but just to say, typically it's not going to make anything better, right? It's going to be a distraction more often than not. But Mark Sears' mother did go on social media last night and try to clear the air. And so hopefully we are done with this after, a couple of days. We can all move on. And it's worth noting that Nate Oates said on Hey Coach last night that Mark Sears had an incredible day of practice yesterday, as well as Cliff Amori. And he essentially just expanded on what he said after the game of, the guys just weren't giving him the energy level that he wanted. He didn't think that they were playing up to their capabilities. And if they're not going to do that, they're going to sit on the bench. But it seems like the team and Mark Sears specifically responded very, very well in practice yesterday. So that's good news moving forward for Alabama's game coming up on Wednesday. But real quick, Lamika Shears, the mother of Mark Sears, this is the post that she made on social media trying to clear the air. She says, quote, "So let me address the misinterpretation of what's being said to the media and fans. As a mother, while I may not agree with the decision, I recognize and respect Coach Oates and the entire Alabama coaching staff. I didn't agree with the choice to keep Mark on the bench for the entire second half, but I fully understand that in sports, especially at this level, these moments happen, and we all learn and grow from them. Mark didn't perform poorly, in my opinion. Sometimes your shots just don't fall, but every player deserves a chance to regain their rhythm. Regarding personal moments that have been shared, I want to clarify that Mark's emotion on the bench was a reflection of his passion and commitment to the teammates. We're proud of how he continues to handle those moments with maturity and focus. Mark and his teammates have put in blood and sweat and tears into the success of the program. He's not an entitled individual. He understands the value of hard work and a strong work ethic. Because of who we are, his parents have instilled that in him. If you know anything about Mark Sears, you would know that. To all the supporters and true fans, your support means the world to us. At the end of the day, we're a family. We go through adversity, but we pull together when it matters most. Mark is committed to improving every day and is focused on supporting his teammates in whatever way he can. We remain confident that with hard work and determination, the best is truly yet to come. Also, please understand that I am his mother. He will always be my son, period, even when the ball stops bouncing. What has been misinterpreted as disrespect is simply a mother's love and a level of protection. I will always be that mom. Now let's continue on the road of winning a national championship."
Hey, I'm a mother's love. And here's the thing. Nate Oates is the head basketball coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Every decision he makes as the head coach, it's going to fall on him. So, if who are we to know what Mark Sears may have done at halftime, or maybe they had a discussion? And he's the head coach. He's got to make these decisions. He needs to know at the end of the game, win or lose, I got to live with the results of what happens. And if this is what I think is going to help us succeed in winning, and by sitting my star player for the entire second half, it happens. And again, for Mark, he's young. He's a young guy. Of course, his pride is going to be affected because it's hey, I'm I'm the best player on the team. I'm looked at in all these accolades and things like that. But the coaches will tell you from number 1 to number 15 on the roster. Y'all the same to me.
And I respect Nate Oates for doing what he thought was best for the team. You still won the game, right, at the end of the day. So if you hate the decision, it wasn't the worst decision in the world because you still won the game. I will just say this, and this was, I didn't really get into this yesterday, but just some food for thought. This was my opinion on kind of a lot of this situation, or just the narrative and how the fans were reacting to it. It's just kind of funny to me that we just went through a football season where a lot of people wanted Jalen Milroe to get benched and were at times frustrated that he did not, in fact, get benched. And yet then when Mark Sears gets benched, everyone starts freaking out and criticizing the coaching staff or this, that, and the other. And I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I was like, so we want it on one hand, but we don't want it on the other. And it's like, at the end of the day, I'm going to trust the head coach's discretion that he knows his players best. And more importantly, he knows how to get a rise out of his players, because that's what's important, right? Is how do you get the players on your roster to respond the way you want them to? And I'm going to trust that Nate Oates knows how to do that better than we do as spectators.
And Auburn fans know this well. Think about how bad it was. Think of how inconsistent Peyton Thorne was. Then he got his job removed. Insert Hank Brown. You realize quickly, oh boy, may have made the wrong decision. And you saw Peyton Thorne respond in a very positive manner. Now, he did have a bad game in the Iron Bowl. Yeah, it happens. But from that point forward, after he was benched, you knew who the starting quarterback was for the Auburn Tigers the rest of the season.
Yes. And I also think with the Mark Sears situation, I also think, people, we kind of look too much into it, because I think, something that I hadn't heard really brought up as part of that is, I mean, let's be honest, in SEC play, the best player on your team's probably been Aiden Holloway coming off the bench. And it's like, yeah, if you can sit Mark Sears for a half, just like in the Illinois game, which again, that wasn't a big deal, but it was, against LSU. But I think that's maybe an underrated part of this is, yeah, he's kind of been the best player on the team for the last couple of weeks, and you want to give him as many minutes as possible. And, they kind of play a similar position. So
exactly. And it's, again, like make them pull you off. Like if you're Aiden Holloway, it's like, okay, I got this opportunity, make the most of it.
Yep.
And I think for Alabama, basketball is a little different too, because as long as the ball is going in the hoop, it doesn't really matter where it's coming from. Whereas like in football, yeah, you've got a star receiver and he gets shut down, then you're asking other people to step up. Where in basketball, it's whoever's got the high hand right now, hey, well, let's keep feeding it. It doesn't matter what position you are on the court. It's just, okay, if Mark is kind of, slipping a little bit, we got Aiden coming in off the bench. He's ready to air this thing out. Like he is ready to shoot the lights out the ball.
Yeah, I just, I have a feeling that on Wednesday, some tells me Mark Sears is going to have a pretty good game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just taking a look at the SEC schedule for the next couple days. Of course, tonight, the big matchup between Kentucky and Tennessee. Kentucky, after the weekend against Vanderbilt, when you thought at one point, it was like, okay, yeah, they're going to, finish this thing on out. Vanderbilt kept chipping away, and then boom, they ended up winning it. And then Tennessee, after a loss to Auburn, where, I mean, there was a lid on both sides of the basket, and then, just it came down to a final possession there in late in the game. How do they respond? But they get them at home. Tennessee right now, 9.5-point favorite at home against Kentucky. We have South Carolina and Georgia, also Oklahoma and Texas A&M to wrap up the nightcap. Those two games on SEC Network. And then tomorrow, Auburn gets things started with a trip to Baton Rouge to take on the LSU Tigers. Alabama on the road to Mississippi State, and Texas and Ole Miss. Those games are on
the Chris Beard
tomorrow.
Game.
Yeah. So.
Something tells me that any Texas fans that make the trip aren't going to be cheering for him.
I don't know. I think you think it might be a mixed crowd? Or Ole Miss is going to be there to prove a point?
I'm going to guess a Wednesday night road game at Ole Miss. Yeah, probably not a big Texas contingent there.
Nah, they got other things to do. 205.
They don't go to their own games, so.
205-834-9450 gets to your text message, your calls from everything over the weekend. Also, why do we hate winners? Why do we hate winners? Kansas City Chiefs has become public enemy number one. Why can't you stand them? 205-834-9450. We get your text message, your calls. We return here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5.
6:35. Welcome back into Morning JOX here on JOX 94.5. Connor and Damien with you until 7 o'clock when we hand you off to McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Getting back to our conversation about why everyone hates the Chiefs and just why in the sports world we get tired of winners so quickly. Can't wait to hear from you, get your thoughts on that in just a minute. But let me remind you real quick that No Shoes Nation is headed to a new dimension here in 2025. Kenny Chesney is going to be live at the Sphere in Las Vegas for 12 shows this May and June, and you could be there to take it all in because one lucky winner is going to score a trip for two to this once-in-a-lifetime concert experience, including round-trip airfare to Las Vegas, a two-night stay at the Virgin Hotel, entry into the VIP pool party, and 2 VIP tickets to see Kenny Chesney live at the Sphere. To enter, all you have to do is text the keyword STUFF to 95819. Again, text the keyword STUFF, STUFF, to 95819. Contest rules are available for you at joxfm.com. Best of luck.
All right, let's go to the JOX text line, 205-834-9450. Your text message, your calls, always welcome here on Morning JOX. Steven texts in. We talk about the winner's fatigue and how it deals with the Kansas City Chiefs. Says no. I think what it is people are tired of the Chiefs getting all the calls at crucial moments, constantly every weekend, and then being force-fed Taylor Swift every time a 10-yard play happens, and then the commentators constantly kissing Patrick Mahomes' butt. He can throw an interception, and they'll be like, "Wow, such a smart play by Patrick Mahomes to get rid of the football." LOL. I don't know. Like, okay, people don't understand how like popular Taylor Swift is. This is the queen. Like this right now, like she is on top of the music world when it comes to just her brand and who she is. And she's also dating Travis Kelce, who's arguably the best tight end in football. Think about the courtside seats that we see, the Jack Nicholsons of the world, and we see like all of these celebrities that are usually at some of these sporting events. Imagine having the biggest pop star at your foot, like in an NFL game. 1 second, 10 seconds, it doesn't matter. If you have her on your screen, I promise you've gained at least 1 million viewers right then and there. It's like, oh, T Swizzle's at the game. Absolutely. People are going to lock in. And also, I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's like they literally pans her real quick. She's celebrating, then boom, they back to the action.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with this whole thing now is I'll be completely honest. At first, when this first was a thing and you were, it felt like they were showing Taylor Swift on camera every 2 minutes on a broadcast. That got old very quickly. And I think very clearly the NFL heard a lot of those criticisms and they went away from that on the broadcast. Look, I'm not the biggest Taylor Swift fan in the world. I don't hate her. I don't care, like whatever. She's there, she exists. I know a lot of people enjoy her music. But watching the game on Sunday, again, I think they showed her twice maybe, after a touch. It's just I think people also, are still latching on to how it was at the beginning when this first was a headline and they showed her all the time on the broadcast. And I think some people are just, it's probably the same way now. It's like, no, it's toned down a lot, but like you said, I don't know. I kind of look at it, every other sporting event you watch, at some point in a commercial break, they pan around and highlight all the celebrities that are there, and no one seems to get riled up. So I don't know. I think at this point, it's similar to like the Chiefs hating thing where it's like, it's just kind of, you're like, you're beating a dead horse at this point. Like,
Right.
It is what it is. We all know the situation. We all have our opinions made about Taylor Swift, whether you like her, you don't like her, you hate her, you think she's awful, whatever. But like, I promise you, blink and you will not even notice that, they go to her on the broadcast anymore.
Exactly. Fanboy takes in and says, please say the real elephant in the room. Nobody hates the Chiefs. They just don't like how the refs get away with some of those calls. Fair.
And I think that's perfectly fair, but that's, again, I'm not going to say that's the Chiefs' fault, whether you think that's a thing or not. I will admit, yes, do they get beneficial calls in a lot of the big games that they play in? Yes, they do. I think another part of that, though, that doesn't get discussed a lot is, the reason that I think it's so easy to criticize the officiating in some of those games is you go back and you watch the Bills game, right? There were a lot of little mistakes that the Bills made over the course of that game. The Chiefs don't make those mistakes. And that's why part of it is, yes, I understand some of the calls that are controversial, like the 4th down ruling. that was bogus. That he got a first down, that was a bad call. But I think we also kind of underestimate the fact that the Chiefs are so fundamentally sound, and that's why even when we can watch them play and go, they're not as good as they have been, that's why they beat everybody they play, because they don't make the little mistakes, and so they're not getting penalized for all these little errors here and there like the other teams are. And then, when a big penalty comes out in their favor, it's, oh man, the refs aren't calling anything on the Chiefs, and I look, I understand the old adage, you could call a penalty on every play of football. I get it, you can, but they are very fundamentally sound, and they make a point of being that way because they understand how thin the margins are when you get into the playoffs.
Yep. Somebody texts in and says it's just the same she's using Travis to get popularity.
Yeah, no, I hate that for Travis.
Yeah, it's not like he, didn't make the first move. Yeah, he was shooting his shot. Sometimes it goes in, man. Shoot or shoot.
I do miss that. That was a fun little time when they started dating and everyone was like, man, this guy's going to be so famous now that he's dating Taylor Swift. And it's like, oh, God. Like, okay. Yeah, we're already acting like he's not one of the most famous football players on the planet right now. Like, okay.
Like, he can sell on and off the field. Like, if you showed a random picture of Travis Kelce, people would be able to spot him whether he's in uniform. And I was like, oh, yeah, he plays for the Chiefs. Like, okay. Like, he's well known as well. Now, I get it. Taylor Swift is the billionaire of the bunch, but it is what it is. He shot his shot, and he shot from Steph Curry range, and it was nothing but nylon. Somebody else texts in and says she's the Chief Spike Lee.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. Because it's the same thing where, yeah, sometimes if I'm watching, if I've been watching a Knicks game and Spike Lee's doing something crazy, I get, it's an eye roll for me. But, okay, whatever, he's there enjoying it. Back to the game.
Exactly. Like it looks like he's having fun.
It's the same thing as, the NIL complaints and the, the one thing we've talked about is when you're actually watching the game, are you sitting there and thinking about, oh, this player's getting paid too much money, or, oh, I don't like their attitude with how much they're getting paid. Like, okay, maybe you think of that, if somebody throws a tantrum and gets a penalty or something on the field, but generally speaking, when you're watching the actual game, you're not thinking about that stuff.
At all.
And that's how it is with this. It's like when I'm actually watching the game and they show her, I'm not even thinking about it because I'm like, all right, what's the next play? Like, I'm ready to get back into the action. I'm not even really paying attention.
Right. It's an afterthought. Like, oh, Taylor Swift's there. All right, cool.
Okay, cool. All right, next play. Great.
Here we go. 205-834-9450. Your text message. Let's go to the phone lines as well. Let's go to Darren, wants to talk some ball with us this morning. What's going on, Darren?
Hey, good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Man, ain't no complaining on this Tuesday, brother.
I hear you. So Kansas City, they go through the season and they embarrass everybody's favorite team, and then you could get a break from it, but even all week long you're seeing highlights of Patrick Mahomes. You see Patrick Mahomes on every TV commercial you watch, and then you throw in all the off the field stuff with his wife or sister and social media and Taylor Swift. Everybody just gets tired of seeing the dude that destroyed their team on Sunday, and they have to listen to it all week and hear it all week, and you see it on social media, and you just get tired of it. And when people like Michael Jordan played, and even Tom Brady to an extent, you didn't have all that. You kind of got a break. Once that guy destroyed your team on Sunday, you can go through the rest of your week and not have to think about him or see him anymore. But now he's everywhere.
Yeah.
And,
that's a good point.
The off-field stuff, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a hater, but I'm an Alabama fan, and even every time Mark Sears stubs his toe, they show his mom in the stadium. I get it, that's his mom. They're trying to create drama or whatever, but just like, hey man, I just want to watch the game. I don't care who's here from his family.
I would agree with you on that. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's just you see stuff all the time and you can't get away from it, so that's why the hate just compounds for the Chiefs and it never goes away. And it's because they're good. And as far as the ref calls, the ref didn't cause Travis Kelce to get behind the defense on seemingly every play.
You feel me?
So, there's that. They're just a good team, and when you see it all the time and they always beat your team, it sucks.
It does, man. Darren, we appreciate you, buddy. He brings a great point. Like, you can't really escape it. And I think that's kind of just, it's the day and age of we have so much access to everything. So it's even when you don't want to see a Patrick Mahomes highlight or you don't want to see a Taylor Swift cut, kind of forced to.
I will say, if I do not ever want to see the Bundle of Rooski commercial again. That commercial makes me want to lose my freaking mind every time it comes on. It's like, okay, come on, come on, State Farm. Like, it's time for, we can go film another one with these guys. I'm sure, but no, I thought Darren made a lot of great points. I think a lot of that has to, it all, I think it is a culmination of all of the parts, right? And I think that's part of what this is it's almost like a perfect storm, right? Of things that could potentially annoy you, whether it's having to watch them on the field and how good they are, the Taylor Swift stuff, like he was saying, with Mahomes specifically, a lot of people don't care for his wife, a lot of people don't care for his brother. And then you throw in all the commercials and all the this and that, and you're on social media and you see Travis Kelsey and his brother on his podcast, and it's just
Yeah.
it feels like you can't escape it. And I thought that was a great point by Darren. I think that probably does feed into a lot of it. But want to keep getting your thoughts. Keep texting in, calling in. Why do we hate not only the Kansas City Chiefs, but just winners in general in the sports world today? We continue to hear from you when we return here on JOX 94.5.
Well played, my brother. Well played. I mean, it is. It must be exhausting always. Yeah. She's the anti-hero. So hey, listen, like it's there. Why do we hate the winners? Why do we hate the winners? Winners ain't doing nothing but what they're expected to do. And that's win. Kansas City Chiefs have reached that point. Why do we hate dynasties? Like, come on. Like, it's not like there aren't 31 other teams that had their opportunities. I mean, Josh Allen, again, he'll never be able, until he knocks off Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is, he couldn't beat the one. Sometimes you got to finish number 2.
Yeah, and then, I guess it doesn't. Maybe it would help a little bit if Joe Burrow hadn't gotten to the Super Bowl that one year, and you could just have the narrative of, oh, well, the only guy that can stop him was Tom Brady because, Patrick Mahomes has 3 playoff losses, and 2 of them are to Tom Brady, and one of them is to Joe Burrow. But, yeah, I saw I saw a Bills fan yesterday post on social media. It's, it's all right, Bills fans. We'll be back. We're going to lose, but we'll be back.
Hey.
It's like, oh, well, it's the right attitude to have.
Got to. 205-834-9450. Let's go to the phone lines before you get out of here. Let's go to Brent, who wants to talk with us this morning. What's going on, Brent?
Hey, thank you for taking my call, and I love your show. And I wanted to kind of get the flip side of it because I do understand winners fatigue and all of that with the Chiefs and Mahomes, but I have a personal reason for liking Mahomes because in 2016 I selected him as my first choice on my college fantasy football team.
There we go.
That probably worked out pretty well.
There we go.
Yeah, he played for Texas Tech, and at the end of the year, he was hurt in the championship game, so I had to decide, in fantasy, you have to decide whether to start or not, and, it was a game-time decision. I said, well, if he plays, I'm going to win it all, and if he doesn't, I'm going to lose. So I started him, and then he did play, and he played hurt, and he just went crazy, and he destroyed the other team pretty much single-handedly. I won the championship on a Thursday night before it even got to the weekend. The other guy said, you beat me with 2 players, and one of them was Mahomes. So humble brag there, but that's one of the reasons. I have a lot of other reasons for liking him, but I definitely understand the winner's fatigue. But I love your show, love everything y'all do, so keep up the good work.
Man, Brent, we appreciate you, buddy. Hey, I'm with you, dog. As a fantasy football player myself, hey, once you start, that's how I am with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Ever since I picked him up in like as soon as he got into the league, I was like, okay, he'll be okay. And he's only been consistent ever since.
So in 2018, I believe that was his first year as the starter in Kansas City. Whatever his first year as the starter was, not his rookie year, but his second year in the NFL when he was the starting quarterback. I took Patrick Mahomes in fantasy football with one of the last picks because we didn't know how good he was going to be, but I was like, oh, okay. I mean, if they got rid of Alex Smith for this guy, like he's probably going to be pretty good. So I'll take a late round pick on him. He can be my backup, right? And if he ends up being good, then great. And so I did that. And then the week before the season started, or like a couple days before the season started, one of my friends offered to trade me Phillip Rivers, who at the time was still good.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'll give you Phillip Rivers for Patrick Mahomes straight up. And I was like, that seems like a no-brainer. Phillip Rivers is better than the starting quarterback I have now. So I traded Patrick Mahomes 2-3 days before the start of his his first season as the starter, which if you forgot, he went and threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. And yeah, that's the biggest mistake I've ever made in fantasy football.
Listen, that's why we're not paid the big bucks as an actual GM. I'm right there with you, brother. I'm right there with you. I made some bonehead decisions like that. But again, it's Patrick Mahomes, man. If you got him, great. If you don't, best of luck to you. And that's the thing. A lot of Chris, he texted the best way to resolve the Chiefs' issues for teams to start beating them. They wouldn't be in the spotlight if they didn't win all the time. The other team puts on their cleats and shoulder pads the same way the Kansas City Chiefs do. So I'm with you, Chris. It's beat them.
About to say teams have had 19 opportunities to do that this year, and it's only happened twice.
That's kind of how it is. And again, with Patrick Mahomes, he's baby goat in training. Malcolm and Kubelik in the morning. Those guys are next.